All right, well, first I want to thank Ali Shanturk for doing all the production on this video. And what you're about to see is a project that I did in a master's level organizational behavior class. And this project was called Build a Tower, Build a Team. And the premise is that if you give people the opportunity in groups to use materials and build a tower, they'll learn about themselves and about the way they work together. There's a lot of learning outcomes that this exercise is used for. It's actually quite famous. I wanted to make it a little different. I wanted to make it unusual, so I put together sets of supplies that were unique to one another. Spaghetti and different amounts of materials and different materials in different bags. So every team had a different hodgepodge of materials. The only rule that I gave them was that they could destroy and utilize any materials, but they could not damage a bell. And it was a little bell that my wife had given me. And that was really just intended to redirect them, to make the directions very simple. There are no rules other than don't harm my bell. They were led to believe a little bit that their team formation was what we were measuring, the effectiveness of thinkers versus feelers, intuitives versus some other typology. I set them out on their venture. I began the time and gave them 20 minutes to work on building their tower. And they worked feverishly, and I noted that they were working independently of one another. And toward the end, I extended their time by an additional 2 minutes, and you'll see that they worked feverishly in that last 2 minutes to build their tower. And the lessons for this build a tower, build a team, maybe will be evident to you, but we'll do an outtake. And so as you watch the video, make note of what you see happening and what you see not happening. The only instructions were build the tallest tower that you can, use any of the supplies. I want to thank all the master students for allowing me to use them as guinea pigs, and all of them consented to be recorded and watched like this. It was a lot of fun to do this, and I think you'll enjoy learning about the nature of how we function together in teams. By dividing yourself up, you mean because you did thinkers and feelers?
Correct.
Did you have expectations as to what that would result in?
I assumed, because we're all feelers, that we would ask each other if we were okay with something, and then we would collaborate and cooperate on, okay, yes, I agree, no, this isn't stable enough, or if we put this up here, this is what will happen. So we had the foresight, and we thought about it first, and then talked about it, and then we used.
Through, okay, here's what we had. Here are the stuff we had. What can we do with it? Went through a couple iterations. Try this on top. Try this on the bottom. Try this on the bottom. We all agreed we needed a stronger base. So we went with a strong base, and then work with what we had without tape. I might add.
And then we all.
This competition can be helpful.
It can.
And it kind of weeds out complacency. Yeah.
So if you, like in an environment like this, we all worked, I mean, we're all competitive. I know Marcel's competitive. So we all kind of went that extra, okay, well, let's, you look around and go, we could do this a little higher. So competition, friendly competition is good in a work environment. It's when you go outside that, when you cross that line. Right.
If you all work together now, we're not going to take the time, and in the middle of the floor we said, all of you together, organize some kind of structure, use whatever materials we have around here and build the tallest tower. Does anyone have any doubt that you could build with these supplies a tower that reaches the ceiling? In fact, I imagine you'd remove a ceiling tile, bring maintenance in to get a ladder, and you build it up as far as it physically could go, right? Because together you could do a lot.
So normally with the traditional build a tower, build a team, a lot of the learning outcomes are designed to demonstrate how leadership will emerge, and power and politics and organizational structure makes a difference in how effective a team is at building things. But I wasn't so interested in that because this was not a class in org theory, it was a class in organizational behavior. I was interested in how teams would work together to build the biggest tower, what they would or would not assume about the rules of the game. While we use teams extensively in the workplace, they're designed to create efficiency, not inefficiency. While we have rules and policies and boundaries for our behaviors, they're never put in place to restrict us from doing great work. And what you've seen in this video is, without putting in place any particular rules, you've seen groups that ended up competing with one another. And you see that they're competing with one another in odd ways. Like, for instance, they're not sharing supplies with one another, but there was no rule that they couldn't share supplies. There was no rule that they couldn't look at what other teams were doing, or even talk to other teams about what they were doing and copy it. And there was no rule that they couldn't combine their efforts and build one tower. There was no implied or explicit expectation that they were actually competing with one another. They were just simply put in groups. I asked them at the end in one of the outtake interview sessions, how big do you think the tower would be if you all put all of your resources together and in the middle of the room used all of your tape and all of your spaghetti and all of your paper clips and everything that you had and built a tower? And it was unanimous that the tower would go up through the ceiling tiles. They probably would remove the ceiling tiles and keep building and get a sledgehammer and break through it, because together they could have done a lot more. Why didn't they? They didn't because, as wonderful as groups are, the downfall is that groups tend to create competition, which in and of itself can be a good thing. But when competition limits the amount of coordination and cooperation that you have with other people, it's not in the best interest of the organization. So, as a manager, our goal should be to create a competitive environment. It's healthy for people in our organization to want to strive to be the most excellent. But what's not healthy is when they strive so hard to win that they do it at the expense of their colleagues, because we work for one organization. And we have to keep that in mind all the time. So a leader's job is to put people together in groups, but at the same time make sure that each of those groups knows that the ultimate goal is to build the largest tower for the organization, not just for your individual group.